Gilgamesh, the Hero. Written by Geraldine McCaffrian. Illustrated by David Parkins.
The Epic of Gilgamesh is the oldest recorded story in the world. It was originally carved on 12 stone tablets which, over thousands of years, were smashed into thousands of shards. Even now, for all the painstaking work of restoration, different scholars place the events of the story in different orders, and some episodes are still lost. Gilgamesh is thought to have been a real king, reigning sometime between 3200 BC and 2700 BC over the Sumerian city of Uruk in Mesopotamia, now Iraq. He led expeditions into neighboring territories to fetch back timber for his grand building projects. The story of the flood, several floods devastated the region, found its way into other cultures, ultimately into the Bible, undergoing changes according to the religion of the teller. The work of archaeology is incomplete. Some of the tile fragments still baffle interpreters. This version is a free adaptation from a variety of translations. Heaven Sent. Gilgamesh dreamed that a meteor crashed to earth at his feet. Everyone came running from their houses, pointing, excitable. They crowded round the meteor, marveling at the hugeness of it, the harm it might have done if it had fallen on a building, on a child. They pushed at it, but 12 men together could not so much as budge it. In his dream, Gilgamesh put a strip of leather round the rock, and, resting the strap across his forehead, strained to lift it. The crowd fell back in awe. Though it weighed more than 100 sacks of grain, Gilgamesh lifted the meteor clear of the ground and, hands braced on his knees, staggered with it to his mother. But just as he arrived at her door, he woke. So he carried her the dream instead. It weighed almost as heavy on his thoughts as the meteor had on his forehead, and he had great difficulty explaining the passion he had felt towards this rock. It sounded so foolish. His mother, Nin-sun, did not laugh. She did not make light of his dark dream. "The gods are sending you a wife, perhaps, or a visitor, some foreign king or sage, someone of great importance." "This is not the first time," he admitted. "I dreamt another dream." "Tell me," said Nin-sun. "I dreamed I was walking through the streets of Uruk, and I saw an axe lying on the ground. It was beautiful, Mother. I had to pick it up. I had to own it. So I slipped it through my belt and wore it by my side. And I was so pleased to have it. I can't begin to say—" He stopped short. It sounded so footling. But his mother did not laugh. "Ah, now I see. It's someone much more important than a king or a sage or a wife. The gods are sending you a friend." Gilgamesh frowned. He did not know what to make of his mother's words, what to think about the prospect of a friend. He had seen rocks before, and axes, but even in a dream, he had never had such a thing as a friend. The idea was as strange to him as a piece of heaven breaking free and falling to the earth. Hunter threw down his bundle of tools in disgust. He squatted down and cupped a drink from the waterhole with both hands, then slapped the water so hard that a dozen little fish skittered out of sight. 3 days, and he had not caught a single animal. Someone had slashed his nets, smashed his snares, filled in the pits he had dug. But who? And why? The fish regrouped. Hunter pulled a big waterside leaf over him to keep off the sun. Otherwise, he would never have seen the creature coming down to drink. The sight made all the hairs stand up on his neck. The creature came down to the water, walking on the balls of his long feet, on the knuckles of his large hands. His entire body, but for the palms of his hands, the inside crooks of his arms, and the hollows of his eyes, were matted with hair. But this was no bear or cat. He bent his head down to sip directly from the water, but this was no antelope or hog. He had a mane of long, wiry hair, but this was no lion. This was a man. Hunter waited, motionless, for the beast to finish drinking and to stalk away. He held so still that the fish nibbled his toes. He held still while ants crawled up his arms and the flies settled on him in clouds. Not until the creature had loped away, head up, the water glistening on his pelt, did Hunter snatch up his tools and run. Afterwards he wondered if he had imagined it. The sun too hot on his head, the light too bright on the water. Next day he had more to worry about than imaginary beasts. Once again his traps were all smashed, his pits all filled up. Once again he found himself cooling his anger at the water-hole. He splashed his face. He skimmed an angry stone. The stone bounced 6, 7 times, then a fist closed over it, and the man-beast was looking back at him across the lake, with sharp, dark eyes, teeth bared. Hunter fled for his life.
"It was there again, Father! I saw it!"
he gasped as he stumbled into camp.
"Bigger than a lion, stronger than a bull. I've never seen a man like him, Father. He's the one who's been cutting my nets and smashing my traps and filling in my pits. With him out there, I'll never catch another beast."
His father blinked his blind old eyes and said,
"King Gilgamesh has more wisdom than most. Go to Uruk, son, and ask the mighty Gilgamesh what to do."
Hunter did not hesitate. He ran and ran, already happier and more hopeful. The name of Uruk was full of magic to him, a place he had never been, but a place famous throughout the world for its wonder. Long before the strip of gold on the horizon resolved itself into bricks and buttresses, Hunter knew it was the shining wall of Uruk, curved out of the plain like a wave breaking. Before he could clearly see patterns on the strip of gold, he knew they were the carved memorials of great men.
"Where can I find Gilgamesh the king?"
he panted, resting his hands on his knees. The men at the gate scowled at him. The women by the well turned aside their eyes. He might as well have named the monster Huwawa. So Hunter headed towards the largest palace, the tallest tower, and asked there for Gilgamesh.
"Why?"
said the men at the door.
"Go away from here, huntsman. You are better off in the wilderness."
"Why?"
said Hunter, gazing around him in wonder at the glazed tiles, the ivory carvings, the glassy teak bowls of flower petals, the host of servants silent as shadows.
"What more wonderful place on earth is there than Uruk?"
"None,"
replied the usher who led him into the king's audience chamber,
"if it weren't for its king. I do not know what troubles bring you to Uruk, young man. None so great as ours, I'll be bound. For what greater burden can a city bear than Gilgamesh?"
And the word fell from his mouth with the wriggle and hiss of a serpent. Gilgamesh.
"Gilgamesh?"
Hunter was astounded.
"But he's famous, never loses a battle, beautiful like a god. Everyone says,"
said the usher, and the look on his face admitted that all those things were true.
"What then? Is he a despot? A tyrant?"
The usher breathed a sigh of unspeakable weariness.
"He has worn us down like a river flowing through a gorge, like a waterfall splashing onto the rocks. So much life, so much energy. He makes perpetual war, you know. He spins our sons like so many arrows in his quiver. And for what? For the excitement of a battle charge? He is forever building new towers. For what? For the sake of touching the sky. You see the walls that surround Yuruk. Who do you think toiled under the sun to drag the stones? We call on the gods to spare us, but on and on runs Gilgamesh, with us for the soles of his sandals.
The usher showed Hunter into the great hall of Gilgamesh the Mighty, and there Hunter saw him, an exceptionally tall young man, standing in the sill of a great window, watching the building work in progress outside. He paced incessantly up and down, tossing out orders like lava bombs from a volcano. "That stone is orange, not gold! That door does not hang there, curse Huwawa! If it weren't for him, I would build in cedar wood. Fetch up another team of oxen!" He was outrageously handsome, with huge dark eyes and springy short black hair. The tissue of his linen skirt was so fine that his legs showed quite plainly, a runner's legs. His skin gleamed with almond oil, and he smelt of the bathhouse and of nutmeg. His belt was gold wire, his collar of lapis lazuli, and when he turned his great eyes on Hunter, it was as if Enlil, the Creator, had paused in shaping the world to watch a hovering bee. It also seemed to Hunter that the king had been expecting someone else. A pang of disappointment crossed the handsome face as seeing a mere trapper.
"O mighty king, your wisdom is talked of all over,"
said the hunter awkwardly. Then he blurted out his story of the wild man. The king listened with only half an ear, still watching the building work from the window. His feet were never still. He looked like a man treading water. When Hunter fell silent, Gilgamesh turned and smiled the most fleeting of smiles. "Go and find the prettiest dancing girl in Yuruk, and take her with you to the drinking place. Use her beauty to lure the wild man out of the wilderness. Have her tame him. That is my advice." And, having given his advice, Gilgamesh's interest was gone. He was bored again, and restless, but he called out as Hunter backed through the heavy door hanging, "Tell me, did you meet anyone on the road? Someone on his way here? Someone like me?"
"There's no one like Gilgamesh,"
said Hunter, and clambered back through the curtain as fast as it would let him.